You're listening to Cold Press Conversations with Dr. Jewel White Williams, a lover of numbers, lists, and a good glass of cold pressed juice, who is sharing episodes each week to help you explore the back end of healthcare and health sciences. Where a lot of that grit is done, we'll dive into topics covering research, education, and clinical practices, as well as guest shows with other leaders in the field. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these amazing and game-changing conversations. Hello, Cold Press Conversations community. It is Dr. Jewel Williams, and I'm your host of this exceptional medical and educational podcast. Today on Cold Press Conversations, we will feature our distinguished guest, Cheryl Field, renowned author and expert in caregiving, Dr. Fitzroy Dawkins, esteemed physician and advocate for clinical trials, and Elma Kanefield, a leading voice in mental health awareness and author. Cheryl and Dr. Dawkins and Elma Kanefield are not only accomplished professionals in their respective fields, but also passionate authors who've dedicated their careers to advancing knowledge and fostering understanding in caregiving, clinical trials, and mental health. So in this episode, we're going to dive a little bit further into their critical topics because it's crucial. We're aiming to encourage the community to explore new perspectives and gain valuable insights, whether you're navigating the complexities of caregiving, exploring the frontier of clinical trials, or seeking to understand the nuances of mental health. Our guests are here to shed light on these important aspects of our lives. I just want you to sit back. I want you to relax. I want you to really take in these enlightening recaps and insights as we learn from Cheryl Field, an RN, Dr. Fitzroy, MD, and Elma Kanefield, a licensed clinical social worker, about their experiences, their challenges, their triumphs in these critical fields. I want you to get ready for inspiration, knowledge, and see how what they give you can truly make a difference in your life. I encourage you to go to Amazon.com to purchase their book so that you can now explore what they share today much further and enhance who you are. Take care. Elma Lyns Kanefield is the author of Hamlet's Mirror. Her background as a licensed clinical social worker, as well as having a background of theater, she allowed us to delve into her book, where we see a professional journey that has been totally devoted to exploring the intricate interplay between human behavior and theater. You know, the inspiration of her book came from working at the Juilliard School, where she opened her first-of-a-kind counseling center, wanting to identify contemporary psychological issues and delving deeper into the connection of theater by sharing insights and strategies which could be used.
When I first went to social work school, I wanted to do a dual degree in counseling. And the head of the Washington University, that's where I went in St. Louis, because I was living there, said, "Why do you want to do that?" I said, "Well, I really think a counseling service should be as natural as, a health service in a university or college."
Now, the concepts of Hamlet's Mirror was even more powerful. She introduces 4 performer personality profiles that she developed over her time of understanding and working with those professionals. The 4 are the problem-ridden, pugnacious, promising, and potential realized performer. Those personalities revealed and clarify how performing artists move through professional and personal challenges to become the best they can be, such as for the people and for themselves as performers. Understanding those themes was crucial, as she offers the reader a unique lens through which actors can examine their own lives. I like all of them because it allows the individual to process. Okay. And when I say process, because you saw process focused thinking, there's a place where process focused thinking will be. Possibility driven thinking, it has its own individual place. Judgment free thinking, that's a whole nother avenue that it could be. And depersonalized thinking, quite unique. So it says, and these ways of thinking are not already a part of your thoughtful repertoire, adopting them will change your life. How can these 4 performance potential energy powered ways of thinking change your life?
We tend to think that hurts my feelings, or how can they say that to me? Most things that are said to us that don't feel good are about us that don't feel good are not personal. They belong to the other person's, if I can use the word, repertoire. The Tony Awards just came out today. Some people who gave beautiful performances were not nominated. The Tony Awards are beautiful. They're lovely, but they're still part of the business. And some of the nominations are business driven, not quality driven. That's just the way the world goes round. I talk to my performers, they're commodities. Horrible, but they are commodities.
Now, what sets Hamlet's Mirror apart from all the other books in the genre is the interdisciplinary approach that she has. It's an interactive book where she, as a clinician, has been able to look into the eyes of performers, as a performer herself, and through the years of having worked with artists who have drawn many to see them perform. And they have accumulated insight and awareness for their culture itself. It was on page 152. And it says, gratitude is fundamental to judgment-free thinking. I told you I like that judgment-free one. Potential realized performers are filled with gratitude. It is difficult to be critical, blameful, accusatory, prejudicial, or hateful when feeling grateful. Wow. And you put it in for potential realized performer. You said you've learned that gratitude thwarts judgment. Gratitude in judgment-free thinking brings out generosity and thoughts about collaboration, allowing everyone's performance potential to be realized. How do you encourage people to use that judgment-free thinking in their everyday thoughts, in their everyday walk?
Sometimes I ask, if you didn't feel so angry or critical or judgmental, what would you feel? And sometimes they respond, well, I guess I'm pretty lucky to, or maybe I'm a little fortunate to, and a shift happens. I have a favorite mantra. May I share it with you?
Please do.
I say it every day when I feel a little. When you change what you're thinking, you will change what you're doing.
Readers of Hamlet's Mirror will walk away with several key takeaways. They will gain a deeper understanding of how the work of theater and psychological experiences can be strengthened through various exercises. Whether for personal growth or for professional development themselves, readers will identify and find valuable insights that can enhance their lives and their understanding of human nature. I just invite you to embark on this journey through Hamlet's Mirror. By reading this book, you will not only enrich yourself, whether you're an actor or not, and appreciate those who are actors, but you will also gain insights that can help navigate the complexities of life in theater.
The book was written for African American patients. It was written for them because I've worked with them at Howard University for 14, 15 years. But I've also worked in other institutions as well, George Washington University, and I see the differences between how patients, say at GW, George Washington, approach their care and their knowledge about what is wrong with them. Even if they're wrong, they come with a fistful of information. Almost, they want to be the doctor. They almost want to say, I have done my research and this is what I want. And number two, a lot of the concerns that they've had over the years and the mistrust properly founded.
I'm going to start off with this one thing. It's called group think. And according to groupthink from Dr. Dawkins, it says the Encyclopedia Britannica defines groupthink as a mode of thinking in which individual members of small cohesive groups tend to accept a viewpoint or conclusion that represents a perceived group consensus, whether or not the group members believe it to be valid, correct, or optimal. I gotta say, your example of groupthink using a friend of yours about how they thought their daughter could be a lawyer.
Yes. Yes.
And she went a different direction.
Yes. 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 I want to thank you for that, because if you read nothing else in the book, if you do get the book, that is the essence of the message I'm trying to get at. An attempt to change the trajectory of the way we in the African American community think about health, and in particular think about cancer. And in fact, Tuskegee changed so many things for the better. The informed consent, the ability for the patient to get redress from the doctor if the doctor treats them without their consent, and so on. But the self-advocacy, the willingness to sort of say, You have not offered me a clinical trial, Dr. Dawkins, but I want to be part because I understand that with clinical trials, I'll be monitored more closely. My symptoms will be addressed. Things can be done for me that ordinarily in a 20-minute doctor visit I may not get. So there are benefits there. I want to participate in a clinical trial, Dr. Dawkins, even if you think that I don't understand. Make me understand. Help me to understand. Because I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my community. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to the African American community, bring a message of hope, a message that things can get better, but we need to advocate for ourselves. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Cheryl Field. I'm a registered nurse from New Hampshire. I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about myself and a little bit about my book, Prepared, a healthcare guide for aging adults. Now, I'm here in my home office on a Thursday night, and you might be wondering, why would I even write a book? And to be very honest with you, I wouldn't have even put myself in the category of people who would have written a book. I much prefer to talk than I do prefer to write. However, about 10 years ago, I really saw some gaps in the healthcare system as an advocate for someone that I loved. And that's really where the idea came from. It took me many years, and frankly, I needed an empty nest so I'd have time to do this writing. But I was given and afforded the time to write Prepared so that I could share what I had learned as a nurse who worked in senior care and had guided people through these crazy transitions that happen when you have a sudden change in health. Moving into the emergency room, a hospital, rehab, back home, sometimes back to the hospital, back to rehab, back to rehab, back to home. The transitions are crazy. And as a nurse who worked in that space, I saw what families were going through. And then as an advocate who took my family members and my loved ones through those experiences, I saw there were gaps. And what I found I was doing was I was really modifying how I showed up. I was changing the way I asked questions and the questions that I asked and the behaviors that I did every day. And I started to repeat those practices because I was finding out what worked and what didn't. And that was really the beginning of Prepared. So I decided to write it all down. I didn't want it to be like that secret family recipe that nobody knows except if you're in the family. In fact, I wanted it to be just the opposite. I wanted this to be information and knowledge that is shared with everyone. And I went online and I looked to see, has anyone done this kind of book that's a really tactical, practical, navigate you through the healthcare system book? And it hadn't been done. There's great resources out there for dealing with aging parents on a variety of perspectives, but this particular perspective hadn't been tackled. And I felt that it was unfortunate that people show up into these situations later in life where if you don't have any knowledge of the healthcare system and you don't really know what's happening or what's going on in your body, all of a sudden it's overwhelming. Really, you're at a loss of control and you don't know what's going to happen next. I don't want that to be the case for seniors or for the adult children of folks that I work with and guide with. So again, this book, Prepared, a healthcare guide for aging adults, was designed to close that gap and to give every one of you an expert guide as you go about your journey. I wanted it to be easy to read. It's humorous. It's funny. I use real life examples in the book and actually just kind of tell you what's going to happen next to put you in a position of control and reduce some of those feelings we have of fear, uncertainty when someone we love is in that healthcare setting. So again, you'll see those concepts and themes throughout the book. I also want it to be a guide for you on advocacy. And so I have a little system that I teach in the book around advocacy, how you be informed and gather information and take control, collaborate, communicate, get back home. And those letters, BITCH, stands for a fun title that we didn't really publish under, but this notion that you can become your own bitch and really do have an internal system of advocacy that's portable, that you take with you everywhere you go. And you can ask yourself, oh, wait, what part am I on? Oh, I'm at information gathering. Or now I need to collaborate and communicate and take control. And the goal is to get back home and stay home, however you define home. And we all have different definitions of home. So you'll see those concepts and themes throughout the book. Again, I think I was in a unique position as a nurse and a subject matter expert who'd been in that space, working in that space, continue to work in clinical informatics, but also as an advocate and taking loved ones into a hospital network. I've always worked away from my own home. So I'd go into my local hospital and nobody knew me. But at a national event, I would have more colleagues and people that recognized me. So my local hospital, people wouldn't know who I was. And I would get misinformation, gaps of information. They'd try to tell me things that were just really wrong clinically. And I would say, hold on, I'm a nurse and I understand Medicare and how these things work. And so I think it's a unique opportunity for me to combine that subject matter expertise along with my approach to teaching, which is simple analogies, easy to follow question lists. It almost reads like a recipe book. Here's what's going to happen. Here's the questions you should ask. Here are some tips for you if you've chosen Medicare or you've chosen managed care as your payer at this stage. And the book follows a sequence. I follow in order what's going to happen when a sudden change occurs. And you find yourself, hopping in the car, heading into the emergency room to meet with a loved one or to escort the ambulance. And even as a nurse at 3:00 in the morning, and you'll read this in the beginning part of my book, I remember thinking, I don't know what to bring. Have I remembered everything? And so there's little checklists come into play, and they're really helpful checklists. So it's unique, I think, from my perspective, to be able to provide this book to you. I also think that it's a real practical book. 100% of us will need this concept for your parents, for your aging family members, for friends, for cousins, sometimes sadly younger people in your family. Although you'll see a lot of the writing here is for the aging adult, the concepts and that model of advocacy applies to everyone. And that's actually what I've seen in the reviews of the book. The audience has said, this is so important. Everyone needs it. This is practical. I'm so grateful for those who have written reviews. I hope if you pick up a copy of Prepared that you will come back into Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, wherever you get your book, and write a review for the next shopper. Not for me, but for the next shopper. And those reviews, the audience has really said, it's humorous, it's simple, it helped me, it guided me. I took it to care plan meetings and the staff commented on how informed I was. And these are some of the reviews that I'm reading from the audience. So I hope from that perspective, that gives you some insights as to how easy the book is and really how useful it is for everyone. And again, 100% of us will need this book, whether your parents are still alive or your in-laws might be alive. Again, there are 60 million Americans over the age of 65. And every single day, 10,000 more age into that over 65 age bracket. You know someone in this category, or you're advocating, supporting, maybe you are someone in that age category. And of course, it's not a hard cutoff, right? You might be 60, 61, 62 and find yourself having a sudden change in health and think, oh my goodness, I'm not prepared. I don't know what I don't know. So that's what the audience is telling me. That's really that unique perspective. And the practicality of this book is the sad truth is 100% of us will need it, either for ourselves or for someone that we love and care about. And written in a style that's recipe guided. It's not a book that you read and give away. It's a book that you read and keep on the shelf because it's going to happen again and again. As a senior care nurse, I can tell you that visiting the hospital or seeking urgent care becomes more and more frequent as we age. And so just like your recipe for your favorite banana bread or mac and cheese or whatever it is that you like to make at your house, chili, you get out that recipe every time. You don't want to miss one ingredient. And that's also true for when I'm advocating for a loved one. I still pull out my book. I still pull out my approach, and I don't want to miss a single ingredient. So I'm super excited that you're spending some time focusing in on you and getting yourself prepared for what none of us want to think about, but all of us will someday face, which are those sudden changes in health. Be in control, do the work now while there is no panic. And then when a change occurs, you're ready. Thanks so much for listening in. And if you have any feedback, questions, or comments about Prepared, a healthcare guide for aging adults, you can hop onto my website, leave me a comment, join my newsletter, send me an email, info@cherylfield.com. Have a great day, everyone, and stay healthy.
Consider multiple myeloma, a type of bone cancer that impacts Black Americans at a much higher rate than whites.
It's a well-established fact, and I've known about this, and The medical community, oncology community has known this for quite some time now.
Let's say something happens to mom. Now, mom knows her 5 sibs don't get along. Like her 5 children, they don't all get along. And it brings mom stress every day. The last day you want that to bring mom stress is when she's in the hospital. So I call these sick day rules. You have a group text. You, number one, ahead of time, when they're not sick, you decide who is coordinating the communication for mom. Let's say it's daughter number 1. Okay, great. Create a group of all the sibs. You only use it on sick days. You can call it sick day rules. If something happens to mom, for that caregiver, the communication is a huge burden. So they use this group text. They're the only ones communicating with the providers. Providers don't have time to talk to the 5 of you because you don't get along. Mom needs to know while she's in the hospital recovering from her heart attack, her children use sick day rules. They're going to be talking and communicating. It's a relief to mom.
So initially at Juilliard, I was hired for 9 hours. By 3 months, I don't know how many students I had seen. It was more of a wonderful idea than a reality.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cold Press Conversations. If you love this episode as much as I did, I need you to head on over and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is Dr. Jewel signing off to health and cognitive happiness.